Welcome to the HerStory Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Getrude Matshe, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is HerStory, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStory Circle. This is Getrude Matshe here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another wonderful young woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Destiny Flood de Jesus, and I'm located here in Houston, Texas. I am a stage 4 retinoblastoma cancer survivor, and a little bit about my story is I decided not to allow my story to define who I am today. I wrote a book called A Little Superhero Fights Cancer, which is my personal story here, and it's about the journey of how I navigated stage 4 cancer as a little girl. I had a very rare disease where I was diagnosed at the age of 11, which retinoblastoma is typically common from when an infant is into the womb into about 4 to 5 years old. I fell into the 1% of rare cases, so it was really hard when my diagnosis came to light because they thought I had cataracts disease, Coats disease, everything that you can think of besides retinoblastoma, which made it really difficult when they were trying to find out the best type of care that I needed and the doctors. Ultimately, I had to get my right eye removed after failing an eye exam at school. My mother was someone that really fought really hard to keep eye exams in school because of that saving my life as a little girl. When my parents found out that I got diagnosed with cancer, I was the first one in my family to ever been diagnosed with cancer. We didn't have any information. We didn't have any resources, and it was a very difficult time for my family. There was a lot of questions, but the support and the community that we came from all came in to really, really help my family. And that is a big symbolism in my book, is the community and the love of my family that helped me get through a lot of the challenges. What moved me to write this story was I realized that there wasn't a lot of resources out there, and there was a lot of misinformation out there for this rare disease. And so I felt really compelled to write a story that would change that narrative of being scared and frightful and uncertain of what was to come. So through this book, I wanted to create comfort, I wanted to create hope, and I wanted to inspire other children that despite all the odds that they were against, that they can go into a book and open it and see themselves, something that I didn't have. I remember being a little girl and getting a huge book given to me as I left Massachusetts Eye and Ear Infirmary in Boston, Massachusetts, and I had so many questions. I didn't understand. I was going to lose my hair and I was going to remove my eye was going to get removed. I remember looking over at my mother and I said, "Mom, I'm going to lose my hair?" And she just started crying. She did not have a good answer for me. And I still was just so confused. So through my book, I have drawings of shaving my hair, going wig shopping, stories that will help navigate those tough conversations that parents might not know how to have. But that's why I wanted my book to be a resource to not only for just children, but for parents too, to help navigate those really tough conversations that they might not have the best word, but maybe through illustration and, pictures, you can have those conversations with your child and it maybe not be as hard for both. And so because I didn't have that, I felt that it was so important. I saw a huge need in the market for this. I saw so many stories out there of cancer, but it wasn't someone's story. It wasn't a child's story. It was either a parent telling a story on a child's behalf, or a caregiver. And I felt that it was important for a child to see somebody in a book that was a survivor. I decided to change the narrative of being a cancer survivor to changing the narrative of to be someone that inspired these young superheroes. It feels liberating to know that when I go and I do a reading to children that are fighting any type of cancer, that they can open up that book and see themselves and see hope and not give up. And I think that overall we needed more of that. I had a bone marrow transplant that was really hard for me. I had a lot of social anxiety because as I reached adulthood, because I was homeschooled for basically 6th to 8th grade. And that took definitely an emotional toll on me as I was reintroduced to being back in school. Even now as an adult, I've noticed there's certain things that I might still have anxieties from, which continues my story and continues my journey as an adult survivor today. In my book, I have affirmations in it for children because we know the power in your voice. And so for me, I felt it was important to have in my book affirmations so children can open up that book and be able to read and say, I am strong, I am beautiful, I am smart, and so many other affirmations that really, really do make an impact on how you see day to day. Again, I didn't have those things when I was a little girl, but as I got older and I learned more about myself and healing and just learning to accept my journey, I realized the power in having these things in my book, and I wanted to be able to provide those to so many children. I am now working on other projects because my work is far from done. But I know that my story is not just about being a cancer survivor. I do feel like I have much more of a purpose to continue to share my story and to help children of all walks of life, to be able to let them know that they are strong and they're never alone. I didn't feel alone when I was battling cancer, but I was very, very confused. I didn't understand why I couldn't play outside with the kids. I didn't understand why I had to be homeschooled. I never understood. And I just toughened it up. My parents did a really good job though at protecting me, even from being bullied, which was really hard. A lot of things, kids can be cruel when they don't know. And I think that by having this book, I see it in classrooms, and I've had so many beautiful messages where parents and teachers have even came forward and was like, I'm so happy I have your book as a tool because I have a young child that's facing cancer and my students don't know how to react to it, but they were able to navigate those conversations through my book. And that brings me so much joy to know that, because I was a child that was bullied. And I don't think that it was anyone's fault, but I just think that there was a lack of resources that were in the school to inform children that people can be sick, and it can be someone that you love. It can be a friend. It can be a teacher. It could be a relative, and kids are smart. And that's why I felt that there was a true need in this space, because cancer is real and there's so much uncertainties around it. It's a sensitive topic, and not a lot of people know how to have those conversations. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. When you ring that bell, when you are having your last chemotherapy treatment, it is very liberating. And for me, that is my testimony to continue to ring that bell and let others know that they're not alone, and to keep up their fight. And that's how I've been able to change the narrative of my story, by being transparent, vulnerable, and really tapping into my pain that I probably have masked for years. It took me a very long time to get here, and I probably would never change my story because I know the impact that I am making to help those in need.
Wow, Destiny, what a journey you have been on. My goodness. I can't imagine what this experience was like for you as a young child at the age of 11, for your parents trying to cope and handle all of this. And I think what you've done with your book and writing it from a child's perspective is just absolutely amazing, because that kind of content, it just isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up as a mixed race Latino, how did your cultural background influence your journey through illness and recovery?
I would say that it was definitely not as easy as I thought it would be, because I didn't have those resources. And I think that we didn't have Facebook. There was no community for my parents. I don't think that they knew where they could turn to. In Latin culture, of course, we are very tight knit. And I think that that's what really helped my family. I remember having circles of my grandparents would come and they would have all their friends from church come together and we would have circle prayer group. And even then I was like, what was going on? But you felt the power of like this, this healing. And I think that that's exactly what helped give me the strength, because I would see everyone come together and I was like, they're here for me? Like, wow. And I didn't even think that I was like a sick child. I just thought this was normal.
Yeah.
But it wasn't normal. But I will say definitely having that community of my family was definitely what got all of us.
How did you overcome the feelings of isolation during this time? Like you're saying, a lot of kids get ostracized, you look different, you're going through chemo, you're missing school. How did you cope with the isolation?
I did go to therapy, and one of the exercises that was given to me in therapy was to draw. And I think that that really helped with my self-expression, because I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to talk about anything. I would get chemotherapy and nurses would try to talk to me and play with me, but I know I definitely was battling depression. I know I was isolated. They would try to get me to play with other kids when I was in, receiving my treatment, but I would just wanted to sleep all day. But through therapy, which again, there was a big stigma. No one went to therapy. This wasn't like discussed. It wasn't, the recommendation actually came from a doctor because he realized that I wasn't talking about my feelings. They would check up on me like, how do you feel? And I just was emotionless. And my mom didn't know how to really, she just didn't see this version of me. It was like my light was taken away. So through therapy, I colored. I painted. I remember just painting, and I just self-expressed myself through that way. And I've always been artistic. And I think that that's just kind of like any artist. You have like this darkness and you express yourself through art. And that is what I did. And then I eventually started painting pictures for kids at the hospital, which even though I wasn't talking to them, I was just painting. And I was like, here you go. And, I think over that kind of started breaking up the isolation that I felt, because it was like, okay, she's in therapy, just let her paint. Just give her an hour, let her paint, whether she wants to, splatter all over the paint board or whatever she wants to do, just let her express herself. And I think that's where I was able to release a lot of just my confusion as a kid and not feel isolated. But that's definitely something, it was way I was able to kind of revert and get lost and not be in my mind so much when I was feeling really isolated.
Now, you mentioned resilience as a key theme in your life. How do you define resilience, and how has it helped you in your personal and professional life?
I find resilience to be almost similar to having grit. Whereas you might get knocked down, but you always get back up. And my parents always, they didn't treat me like a handicap. They treat me like a regular child. And I think that made a very, like a strong mark in how I went into adulthood, because they didn't treat me like a handicap. They weren't like, you can't do certain things. They encouraged the opposite. It was like, okay, I know I can't ride an airplane. I can never drive an airplane. I can never go to the army. I can never drive a big bus. Like, there was all these things that doctors were telling me I couldn't do. But that wasn't the discussion that was happening at home. It was more encouraging to go after whatever it was. And even if you were told no, it was like, you just get back up and you just keep going and you keep going. And I think that resilience stemmed from always getting such bad news. Every time I went to a hospital, it was like bad news, bad news, bad news. And over time, you get this tough skin and you're just like, okay, what are we going to hear today? Because we're just going to continue to get back up, and that's what we're going to do. And I think that's where it has got me today in a professional space. Today, I am very resilient. I do work in a male-dominated industry. And as working in a male-dominated industry, you get, they take passion. Sometimes they can take that as being aggressive. Women can be aggressive when they work in a male-dominated industry. But for me, it's not. It's that I am passionate and I deserve to be here. I deserve to be here because God gave me a second chance at life. And that, I believe, is what gives me so much strength and resilience and grit, is that I already went through such darkness. That's like, what could life give me next? And that's what gives me up every day.
Wow. Now, as a digital marketing specialist, how do you balance your structured, data-driven career with your creative pursuits like writing and photography?
When I was in high school, my graduation, my dean said these words. He said, as long as you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And so now being in the digital marketing specialist position, I do all. I do photography. I write. I do art. I get to review graphics. And so it's like, it doesn't feel like I work. I feel like I'm just strengthening my passion. And so I love that I am in a career today and being able to express myself freely. I have an amazing mentor, my boss, and she's always encouraging, growth. And I think that's important too, is having, other strong women that you admire around you that also see your passion and support it. And that is what has definitely got me where I am today. I love what I do, hands down. I'm definitely in a career that, when they say, what would you do if you was a little girl or if you weren't doing what you were doing now? And I said, I would be doing what I'm doing now because I love what I do right now. And I think that even my colleagues and, people I work with, they know I am passionate. They know I am, I wrote a book and they're always like, what are you doing next? And, oh, we know Destiny. She's always the girl with the camera. So I think that that's definitely where has helped me get to where I am today, because I definitely followed my passion. I didn't follow the money. I didn't say, oh, you must go into, the medical industry. That's where all the money is and all of that. But it's not true. Whatever you do that you're passionate about, you are going to be blessed. And that's how I feel.
So can you share the process of creating your book from idea to publication? What were the rewarding and challenging aspects of it?
So I did a lot of research on Fiverr, which I love Fiverr. It's a really great platform for all different types of creators. And I did a lot of research on children's books, and I just looked into different types of illustrators that I felt that were in alignment with the creative idea that I had. And it really wasn't that hard for me because it was my story. So I already knew what scene I wanted. I said, okay, this scene here, I remember being at the doctor's office, and every scene in my book is a very, very vivid memory of my real child. So it wasn't hard to come up with the illustrations and work with my illustrator at all, which she was in Dubai at this time. Bean Redwood, was so amazing to work with. The hard part, though, was tapping back into that trauma. And there was a lot of moments that my husband, he really inspired me. He's like, you need to tell your story. And I always knew I wanted to write a book, but I didn't know it was going to end up being a children's book. I knew I was going to share my story, and it ended up being a children's book. But that was definitely the hardest part, was retapping in the trauma that I didn't think I ever really processed. I just kind of like, okay, I went through cancer and I just went on with life. I went through high school, went through college, and, you have all these things that you are doing. You're so busy. But then when I started to slow down, I got married and we decided to do this project with my husband, I unpacked a lot of trauma. There was days that I was writing my book and I could only do probably like 2 pages, and I had to really shut my laptop and say, wow, these are some really big emotions that I don't think I've ever really learned to process. And so I almost feel like my book was also healing me, the little Destiny in me, while I was writing this book, which allowed me to own my truth better and not always shy away from it. It took me a long time to say, yeah, my eye is prosthetic. Before I said, oh no, it's this lazy eye. But now I'm like, I have enough self-confidence in myself because I unpack that trauma. I self-love myself. I accept myself. And I say, yes, I have a prosthetic eye, but I won't take it out for you.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you have come a long way with this. So how does your unique perspective as a cancer survivor shape your photography and storytelling?
So I think that with having one eye, of course, you see life through a different lens regardless. There might be something that, someone with 2 eyes might not see the way that someone with, my type of vision has. I have a very strong attention to detail. But I also know the precautions I have to still take. These are not prescription glasses, they're safety glasses, to make sure that if someone throws something across the table or you just never know, I need to make sure I'm always protecting my good eye. Being a photographer, I've had moments where I'm like sitting there at a show, or I've shot baby showers, I've shot weddings, different events. I've bumped into people and I'm like, I'm so sorry, because, I don't have that peripheral vision. But I think that it's just, overall has helped me just have fun with it and be creative and just like, oh, I'm so sorry, like I didn't see you there. But overall, it's just, I think I'm able to self-express myself through my love of photography and art in general. I just think I always get lost in it. I love editing. I love when I do events, I see weddings or do any type of photography. I love seeing that I can put stories together. I can see before and afters. I love capturing a moment and being able to give something special to, you know, clients that I work with or through work, or different projects that I work on. When my niece and my nephew were born, my nephew was actually who inspired me when to pick up a camera, and I shot all my nieces and nephews' pictures, my sister-in-law's maternity pictures. It's very passionate of mine and really made me connect with my family a lot too.
That's just amazing. Sounds to me like family is everything to you.
It is. It definitely is. I think that having a strong foundation, you know, with your family, there's highs and lows when it comes to family, but when you are facing your toughest battles, your family is always going to be there rallying behind you and to get you.
So how do you address the financial and emotional challenges that families face when dealing with cancer? And what resources do you wish had been available to you as a child?
I'm an adult today and I still get medical bills from having kids. I had reconstructive surgery 7 years ago now, where I had to have emergency surgery on my eye. And I feel like I'll never be able to break away from that financial burden of having cancer. That is why with my book, I work with nonprofit organizations to give back with families that are dealing with the burden of those medical expenses, because a prosthetic eye is not covered by insurance. So, you know, you see many children that are around and they actually are not getting covered to get their implant. And that's hard because insurances don't cover those things. So it's a out of cost financial burden that my parents, I mean, we had a fundraiser benefit that helps a lot. You know, when we first found out that I was sick, my uncle and my aunt raised a beautiful benefit to help raise funds to cover certain medical expenses that were causing a burden on my family. I know the financial stress did cause, my parents did get divorced. That was another part that I struggled with, because I felt like I was the sick child that caused my parents to get divorced because of that financial burden. The burden of my mom having to be away with me weeks at a time while I got pregnant, and my dad having to stay at home with two other young ones. That was hard, but I had to unpack that as an adult too.
Yes.
So today, I work with a lot of different nonprofit organizations all around, and I will say that there is a lot of nonprofits that help young children in need, and those things didn't exist because, again, there was no social media. The power of social media and community now is, I feel like so many people can go, you know, you had GoFundMe pages that wasn't around when I was battling that. You know, you have all these different types of resources now that I think that people are willing to more, you know, help when they know the story. You can open up a GoFundMe page and you see, you know, a child that is battling cancer, and you do feel compelled. You know, you have strangers from all around the world that are, you know, supporting. And I think that today is the beauty of, you know, social media and digital media, because my parents didn't have those things. They had to really rely on the community and like the benefit. And that's what helped me and my family get through that. But as an adult, the financial burden definitely still fell on me as an adult today. I still, when I go yearly for checkups, you know, I have to go yearly to clean my eye. That's out of pocket expenses, and it's always mind blowing to me.
So my last two questions for you are a bit of a time experiment. The first one, I'm going to teleport you into the past, and you are going to go have a conversation with the younger you, that little 11-year-old girl who was going through this horrendous illness, operations, being in hospital, missing school. If you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
I would tell her to don't shy away from your truth, and to own every room that you walk in, and to raise your head high, because you do belong there.
That's so beautiful. Now, the last question, I'm teleporting you into the future now. You've written one book, and they say that once you're an author, you're always an author. This is probably going to be the first of many going forward. But if I can take you into the future to go and sit and have a conversation with the 80-year-old you, based on how you're living your life right now, listening to your promptings, those inner voices that make you make decisions, that inspire you to write books. What will you say to the 80-year-old you when you finally meet her?
I would tell her, you made your mark on the world.
Fantastic. And you sure are making a mark on the world. I have your website at the bottom of the screen if anybody wants to reach out. If you know a young child who is sick, and it actually doesn't matter what illness, right? This is a book that can help any child who's feeling different, is feeling isolated, is needing some support. So please go online and buy this amazing book. So thank you so much for the interview. This was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The HerStory Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to help take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So please tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Thank you for tuning into the HerStory Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Getrude Matshe, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the HerStory Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.